Israel and the Galilee. Please give me a minute before you post in the chat so I can put my posts up. It'll be quick. Let's make sure we got sound. Something's not right. There we go. Seems that we got sound. There we go. Seems that we got sound. Just be a second. Just be a second. Be a second. Okay, if anybody wants to post, feel free. Go right ahead. A few people are coming in. I guess we're working. Takes time for people to come in. Okay. Get my sunglasses on. Oh, I didn't turn the volume down. I can do that in a second. Few people are coming in. I guess we're working. Okay. All right. Being a Bible believing site. Caution, Bible believing site. Okay. I live in Israel. I'm a Jewish person, you would say. I'm a Levite. I'm also a descendant of Aaron, and I live here. And I'm Old Testament, New Testament believer. Yeshua HaMashiach is my Messiah. And I'm full of the Holy Spirit. And I'm going to do some praise now. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay. There's no J in the Hebrew alphabet, so Father God's name cannot be Jehovah, and the Son of God, the Messiah, who rose from the dead and is seated on the right hand of God the Father in heaven, his name cannot be Jesus, it's Yeshua. God, the Father's name is not Yahweh, it's Jehovah. Yud He Vav He, Yehovah. And Yeshua's name comes from the salvation root Yasha. It's Yeshua. Okay? Salvation is the connotation of what it has to pertain with. Okay. And his last name is not, HaMashiach, which means the anointed. The word in the Greek, Christ, comes from the Latin Christos. They mean anointed. So it's saying his name is Yeshua the Anointed. Okay? That's what it means. Okay? You want to go after the messenger, go ahead, but that's what it means. All right. So what I want to cover today has been some rather substantial legal decisions on the federal level in the not the state courts or the city courts, the federal courts, and they've been rather profound. I mean, they're serious. And I'm going to go through them. I put them up on my Telegram. And I got documentation for one of these pertaining to guns and the migrants. And it's rather shocking. And on my Telegram, I posted some, uh, you know, the British newspaper Mail and Fox News, the articles from them. So these things really did happen, and they're just coming out in the news now. Surprisingly, mainstream media is carrying it, but not to any huge extent. Okay, so let me start with the other day. Supreme Court said Texas can arrest the migrants that entered Texas illegally. All right, now I carried the story and I got it confused from somebody who was probably a Weisenheimer, but I thought it was a reliable source. Probably the person didn't speak English as their first language and didn't understand the decision. But then some hours later, I got the real truth and I read it and I researched it thoroughly. So if somebody comes into Texas from Mexico illegally and then goes to the ICE or the Border Patrol and says, hey, I'm an asylum seeker, I want to seek asylum, the Border Patrol will do, basically, from my understanding, two things. If they feel they're going to come up on a watch list or something like that, Border Patrol people have been saying they just kick them loose. If not, they give them some paperwork, which the people conveniently get filled out in Mexico from various charitable organizations for free, and they just show up and here's my asylum papers. And then they do their paperwork, put it in the computer, process them, and give them a court date, which I understand now, I'm not totally positive, but somebody mentioned it's 2034. I thought it was 2031 or 32. Now it's 2034. I guess they're really backed up. So once these people get that asylum seeking paperwork with a court date, they're legal in America. They could stay there until the court has the hearing and determines whether or not they should kick them out or grant them asylum status, or maybe postpone the hearing for further legal arguments or whatever. Okay, and the postponement might be, I don't know when. You know, it could be 2 weeks, it could be 6 years. I have no idea. We don't know what'll happen. You know, it's too far down the road, but it's prophetically it ain't gonna be around anyway. So Texas deems these people illegal because they entered Texas illegally. Once they step foot on Texas soil, they're illegal because they didn't get a visa. They entered illegally. So the United States is saying, well, they entered illegally, but they're asylum seekers now. They filed for asylum, therefore they're legal. So in the eyes of the Fed, they're now legal. But in the eyes of Texas, they entered Texas illegally. Therefore, the Supreme Court said, Texas has the right to arrest them, and they also can deport them into Mexico if they came from Mexico. They don't have to be a Mexican, they just have to have entered through Mexico, even if Mexico doesn't want them. Now, how this is going to play out, I don't know. Mexico could put troops on the border and say, no, they can't come in, and, you know, but we haven't seen that. But we might see that, but we haven't seen that. Okay? Now, this probably is going to stop Texas from putting them on buses and trains and sending them to sanctuary cities to collapse the sanctuary cities. I expect Texas will begin deporting them, or they may keep sending them to sanctuary cities. The Supreme Court didn't speak to that in their ruling that I'm aware of. Okay? So Texas will use all various law enforcement agencies, probably including the National Guard, which, by the way, is patrolling the New York City subway systems because it got so bad. Okay? And somehow find a way to send them back to Mexico. Now we have to understand something. There's other states that have borders with Mexico, and Texas' hard hand approach to it has caused a lot of these people entering the country without a visa, which is deemed illegal, to go into other states like Arizona and so forth, including California. Now, I don't see any signs of California putting restrictions on them or building a wall or anything else like that. Now, I'm not aware of anything. I'm not aware of them even intending to do that. Now, that could change, but I'm not seeing anything. I do believe other states, let me take a look for a second here, are going to follow what Texas did. Now, that's my opinion, and I do believe that it will happen because they've got coverage from the Supreme Court, which means the legislature, the head of the police, and the legislature, and the governor, and the assistant governor, attorney generals, or whatever, are not going to get arrested. At least we don't think they'll get arrested. I mean, it doesn't seem likely. So you basically got, a problem, I would say, with New Mexico, Arizona, and California. So they're just shifting west. I don't think California is going to do a thing about it, as I said, but you may see New Mexico and Arizona operate in a similar fashion to Texas. You might. I think you will. Basically, what it would involve is them possibly needing to pass a law in their state legislature, which they could do on an emergency basis. If they get the required amount of votes, then the governor has to sign it. I don't know much about the governments in New Mexico and Arizona. I think Arizona is pretty in favor of what Texas did. New Mexico, I don't know. California, forget about it. They're not gonna, I don't think they're going to do it. So the flow of illegal immigrants is going to shift. Bear in mind, many are coming into Florida by way of the ocean and just pulling up on Florida beaches and abandoning the boats. Now, I think he started some deployment of law enforcement to stop that or curtail it. I don't know how effective he is. Now, you have to understand, if they enter New Mexico, Arizona, California, or Florida, and they go into Texas after they've been in the country a month or 3 months or whatever, Texas may still arrest them because they'll ask them for their passport. Where's the visa to enter America? Oh, we don't have a passport. Well, then you don't have the visa. Therefore, you entered illegally. But the gray area is they didn't enter Texas illegally. They entered another state. Well, they'll so state they did. Say they did. And I'll confuse it with the state word twice. They'll say, oh, we went into Arizona. So it's going to be an issue because Texas could try to say, well, you're illegal. No, we're not. We have asylum seeker status. And that could be a valid legal claim in the court systems in America for the Fed anyway. So that could happen. So this is the first sign. Now you got to remember what kind of signs I'm presenting here. This is the first sign of Texas getting a good victory over Biden, and Biden's not happy about this because he's running for office. If it was 2 years ago, he probably would be dealing with it differently. Oh, it's going to get a lot worse when I get into the other stories in a second. Let me take a quick look at the chat. I want to make sure, yeah, people are coming in. Let me see if I got any garbage yet. No, garbage hasn't come yet. All right. So, this is likely going to push things to civil war because more states are going to do this, and this is a pet peeve that Biden has. Okay? They're already enabling these, there's been legal decisions which date back to when Biden was first in office as an executive order, that if the states allow these, what we call illegal migrants, to vote in elections for the president, it's fine with the Fed. Biden said it in an executive order. So if there are going to be states, like we could call them sanctuary states or whatever, that want to let these people vote, they can. And Biden considers it valid. And this was done, I think, in 2021. I covered it a week or two ago. And it's on the books. It's an executive order, and they can vote. So what Biden was doing, in my opinion, letting the immigrants in, is picking up votes. Because they're giving them, in some cases, a $5,000 cash grant. They're giving them, in some cases, housing, food stamps, Medicaid, all kinds of assistance. Okay? Now, there's a lot of people that are supporting this. Let's talk about Tyson Foods. They're huge. I believe they're based in right where the Walmart headquarters is. And they just laid off 1,200 workers that were Americans. And they then announced plans to hire 52,000 illegal migrants, or migrants as they tend to call them, which is basically undocumented aliens in some cases. In some cases they have asylum seeker status. I don't know exactly or precisely who Tyson wants to hire. I expect only those with the asylum paperwork. Okay? Now, of course, the motive here is that Tyson can reduce their operating expenses in the field of labor substantially. So I don't know what Tyson pays, but I imagine that what they're gonna pay these migrants with asylum status is probably at least $5 or $8 an hour less than what they pay the American workers. It might be a lot more. That I would say it's going to be at least $5, or at least $3 in some low, basic labor situation where people are just putting boxes on trucks and so forth, or putting things on shelves. When you're talking 52,000 people, okay, and let's say they save $5 an hour. Okay, I get a calculator out. So you got 52,000 people, and you got $5 an hour times 5, $260,000 an hour. Let's do it by the week. That's $10 million a week, and there's 4.3 weeks in a month. They're saving over $44 million a month. Multiply it by 12, and so this is going to keep the bosses at Tyson in yachts and private jets and Ferraris without having to raise prices or reduce the cost of the raw materials. And it's going to drive, not only that, it's going to drive their stock prices up. And that's how these guys make their fortune. they're given stock options where they could buy. An option is a thing they might give it to them, and it might stipulate you can't execute the option until you're employed here as an executive, for a year or 3 years or 5 years or 10 years, whatever they want to put in there. They can put in there and they agree to it. An option allows them to purchase stock from the treasury shares of the company at a specific price, irrespective of what the stock is selling for. So let's just say the stock is selling for $45 a share, common stock at this point in time we make up, right? They might have an option that lets them buy it for $20. So they basically use their option and they manipulate the books, basically. So they're in reality going to the stockbroker and saying, here's my option, and they're doing an immediate transaction where they buy the share. They're buying the stock at $45. Well, they don't. They buy it at $20 from the company, and then they immediately sell it for $45 on the market. So this could conceivably take place in 10 minutes or 1 day or 2 days or something. So they're basically, the stockbrokers will finance them at a charge for the money to buy the millions of shares of stock from the treasury account of Tyson and immediately sell it. They just wait till they have a buy order or buy orders, and then they sell it, and they just send the guy a check for the difference between 20 and 45, which is $25 a share times however millions of shares they have. So that's how these guys one way they can golden parachute out is sell their stock options, and they walk away with many millions of dollars. So it's in their best interest to do all they can to run the stock prices up. However, be the world of Satan, these people are usually grossly incompetent. And they run these billion and trillion dollar companies, and they celebrate if they get a 1.8% profit or 2.3% or something like that. Whereas if you tried to operate a business yourself, a small business, and tried to work on a 1 or 2 or 3% profit margin, you'd close the business and go get a job. See, they're nincompoops. That's it. I'm telling you, these despots are not smart. What's the beginning of wisdom? Fear of the Lord. Do they have that? No. They don't have any wisdom. Okay, they can't run companies. When you move around in circles with these characters, most of them, not all, I have to admit. I was around the chairman of the board of Coca-Cola about probably be 40 years ago, and I didn't think he was a stupid person at all. I thought he was a pretty bright guy. But many of them are stupid people. Many of them are. When I was with him, he was, I would say, 55 years old or something like that. He came from Brazil. And the guy that was with him was about 28, maybe 25 to 30. And he had classic, discreet bodyguard appearance. You wouldn't see him in a crowd. He was a bodyguard. You wouldn't see him in the crowd. He was maybe 5'8", 145, 135 pounds or something like that, 150 max. Not muscular, nothing, thin, and, this is what you get. When you look at, agents in high security, operations like nuclear regulatory or CIA agents and stuff. Many of them are this way. They get lost in the crowd. They really do. I used to go to meetings where there were security meetings where federal and local agencies would show up, and you'd see these guys. They just share reports of what's going on with crime. There was no real terrorism. What's this, what's that. And it's unbelievable. And their S-bots, they just merge into the woodwork, which is what you see in the churches, the S-bots in the churches that aren't, speaking from the pulpit and stuff like that. They just kind of merge into the crowd. And you don't know that, you have trouble really understanding they're there or knowing who they are. And that's how these characters are, So anyway, he was a bright guy. And, there's a lot of executives in companies that don't have stock options and not highly placed, but they might make, by today's standard, 180, 250, even $300,000 a year. They're S-bots, but they're not anything. They're just, And some of them have degrees. They have bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, law degrees, their accountant degrees, computer technology, and they have a skill set that these companies need. Now, I knew a guy, I met him on a cruise once, that worked for the Agency for International Development, AID. You probably don't know what that is. It's a spook agency. And they tend to hire law enforcement officers that are experienced. And what's experienced? They usually look for at least 10 years, but they like people that attain the rank of captain or chief or deputy chief or sheriff or undersheriff or stuff like that. And they like them when they retire out, so they got 20, 30 years on the job. They're, 50 to 60 years old, or they, sometimes they'll take somebody in their 40s that's a captain, or even in their 30s, but they're not looking for a guy that's a captain in an 11-man department. That doesn't mean anything. They're looking for people that are in agencies with at least 600 or 800 people. And they take them and they use them to go work with law enforcement, not spooks, law enforcement in other countries. Now, what do? They recruit them to work for the agency. They go over there, they're training, and they're looking for somebody that they could recruit, corrupt. And they don't tell the country that they've hired them. And they work a deal with this guy. They pay him, maybe in some cases they might give him $500, $1,000 a month, or some other places they might give him $5,000 or $6,000 a month, depending on the country, the economy, how much this character is worth to them. And when they want information about something in this country, background on some individual, they may want, the spooks may want to corrupt or turn, or blackmail or extort or whatever, they'll have this guy tap into the country's database and get them the whole background on this guy, and or woman or family, and then he'll dig deeper, and they isolate targets. They also get information on criminal activity, which is another special like of theirs. Spook agencies over the world are always lining up with criminals, okay? Because they can get access to things they need. Forged, stolen, illegal documents, various drugs of all different natures, not just narcotics, all kinds of drugs, all kinds of guns and weapons, and they can hire people discreetly for cash, and have them do things like break into a house, threaten somebody, harm somebody, kill somebody, kidnap somebody, and they'll bring people in that have a cover story and nobody really knows who they really are, and that's the contact that'll give them the cash or put money in foreign bank accounts, but generally they like the cash, and have it done that way. That's kind of where they operate, if you're wondering, Does the CIA and agencies like that have hit teams? Yeah, but not as much as you think. It goes on, you know, but it's more they blend into the criminal element. Now, the criminal element may or may not know who they are, or they may not care. And a lot of times, you know, this is something that you don't read about very often, but it goes on. When these intelligence agents get arrested, and it happens, it happens to all different countries. One country, you know, they generally will put them in jail. I mean, if they did something really bad, like assassinations, and they got caught and exposed, they may execute them, but that's not common. They may immediately contact the country they work for and arrange an exchange in return for favors. It could be cash, it could be weapons, it could be information, it could be a release of people that the other country is holding for espionage and spying and sedition and stuff like that. And usually these people are not going to be in jail very long. It may be weeks, months, or it could even go to 2 years or 3 years. Now, what you probably never heard before is they get paid while they're in jail. Depending on the agency, frequently it's $1,000, $1,500 a day. And some of these agents don't have a problem sitting in a jail at $1,500 a day for 2 or 3 months. They get out and they go buy themselves a nice, beautiful pickup truck for cash or something like that. They're not abused in the jail because they know who they are. They're usually isolated and treated well, and they don't mind. I mean, this money would be tax-free, of course, and that because it's earned overseas, and that's how they do it. That goes on all the time, but you don't hear that, you know. Yeah, I mean, crazy countries like Iran execute spies all the time, or maybe Turkey would, or this and that. These Sharia law countries do it. America has a rough time working with them. But anyway, back to what's going on in America. All right, so now I'm going to show you some documentation for the next thing I'm going to talk about because it's that outrageous. Okay, it's, you know, if I don't show you documentation, I'm not even sure. Oh, before we get there, let's talk about homelessness. These, as they like to call them, migrants, asylum seeker types, are flooded into many cities in the United States, like New York and many other cities. There may be as many as 20 or 50 cities, and they're homeless. And some of these cities are asking their constituents to consider taking these people into their house. I imagine eventually it'll evolve to giving them a room in your house, which will probably be inspected by a welfare worker, and return for a monthly stipend, which would be, I don't know what, you know. If they say they're going to give somebody $300 a month, I don't think anybody's going to take it because of air conditioning, heating, electric, and inconvenience, and cleaning. You know. But if they say they're going to give them $800 or $1,000 a month, I think people are going to start taking them in. Now, if they have a house with 4 bedrooms and they're an elderly couple and they got 2 or 3 empty bedrooms, they can make themselves, you know, $1,500, $2,500 a month for nothing. Just letting these people live there, and the people may be dumb enough to not understand what they're exposing themselves to. So Biden has left the back door open by Mexico so much, they don't have any more housing for these people. So these people are homeless. 70% are military-age males, and there's millions and millions of them. So what do you think is going to happen? They're homeless. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to want to get a house. They're going to start rising up and want to move in and take your house and get rid of you. You need to read what happened in Israel on October 7th, what these people did to us down there. Okay? To understand what you're dealing with. Okay? It's going to be bad. And some of these people that are illegals are probably from countries like Cuba, Venezuela, North Korea, China, Iran, and Russia, and they probably have people from Hezbollah, ISIS, Al-Fatah, Hezbollah, Houthi, Hamas. You have no idea how brutal it can be. All right, so you have to understand this is going to cause the migrants to rise up. Demonstrations and things like that, yeah, great. So what? That's not meaningful, but they're going to start. If they don't get what they want from demonstrating, then they're going to push it further. It's not displaying. Oh, I can do it another way. Hold on. I'm going to show you some headlines because it's so weird that I would think if someone showed it to me, it would be rather hard to believe. This is from Mail Online. I don't know. I think it's hours old, maybe maximum of a day or almost a day. It reads like this: Obama appointee and liberal Illinois federal judge rules illegal migrants can carry guns legally. There it is. Now, it's not just carry guns, it's buy guns. Now, that's just one. Let me get you another article. Here's from NBC Montana. Similar. It just says carry guns, but I understand they can buy guns. Let me check this article here. The name of this judge is Sharon Johnson Coleman. It was based on an illegal migrant named Heriberto Caraballo Flores. Caraballo Flores. He has a big name. Was charged under Title 18 of U.S. Criminal Code, a measure preventing illegal migrants from possessing firearms. This guy had no criminal history of improper use of a gun, and therefore, according to the court, and not presenting, it's incorrect English, a public danger when exercising his Second Amendment right in Chicago. It says that this Flores guy received and used the handgun solely for self-protection and protection of property during a time of documented civil unrest in the spring of 2020. The judge wrote this: thus this court finds that as applied to Flores, Title 18 is unconstitutional. All right, let me read the text of the other articles. I'm trying to get down to how they're going to buy a gun. But if you could possess a gun, it would be lawful to buy a gun by implication. But let me see if they speak to that. There's a Fox News article on the same thing. This one says they have gun rights protected by Second Amendment. So this is stranger than fiction, so I'm showing you the headlines from mainstream media. This one says this judge found there is no traditional regulation that permits the government to deprive a non-citizen who has never been convicted of a violent crime from exercising Second Amendment rights. So what she's saying is this: let's say you came over to America in 1840 from Ireland or England or Tokyo or whatever, right? And you came to America. How did it work back then? Well, people didn't have passports. That's just a demonic control thing. They would show up at immigration. They would make in America, they would make a declaration. Maybe they had to go into quarantine for diseases, maybe not. Maybe they just got inspected by a member of public health service, maybe not. And then they were in the country. Now, if they were going to be out in a rural area, they would want a gun to protect themselves and to hunt with. So they would go to a store that sold guns, and they would say, "What do you got?" "I want a pistol, a rifle, a shotgun." They'd plunk the silver dollars or the gold pieces down, and they walked out with the gun. That's the historical thing with the Second Amendment, okay? So is the judge standing correct on that? Yes. What about this convicted of a violent felony or this or that? Well, these people haven't been here long enough to get convicted of anything. And nobody really knows who they are. In the countries they come from, they're making up names, and they're not going to reveal any information. So a few months ago, there was something going around on the internet that these illegals that have asylum status are not subject to the background check because the background check doesn't have any data on them. So my interpretation of this is they should be able to go into a store and buy a gun. But if they can't, for some reason, that this judge's decision makes it lawful for them to have a gun in their possession. So a non-FFL person, a non-federal firearms licensed dealer, that's not bound by those state and federal laws, usually an FFL has a state license and a federal license, maybe not necessarily all the time, but states have the right to impose their own gun laws on people. But like they could say, well, there's a 3-day waiting period, a cooling off period, or it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever. That's to stop somebody that's extremely angry that wants to kill their boss or a neighbor, or wants to kill themselves. You make them wait several days, and then the hope is they aren't going to do it. Now, if somebody buys a gun in America and they go to the gun dealer 2 or 3, 10, 15 days later, a reasonable period of time, and say, "Look, I need to return the gun. I'm afraid I'm going to hurt myself," which means I'm afraid I'm going to commit suicide. If they say, "I'm afraid I'm going to kill my boyfriend or my girlfriend," or my mother or my neighbor, then the gun dealer can report that to the police, and they'll confiscate the gun and this type of thing. But in the event of a suicide, threat, then they probably can report it to some authorities who will probably do not much of anything about it if it's an illegal. But the gun dealer is going to take the gun back, sell it as a used gun for less money, probably take a loss, and be rid of the problem, because if the person does take themselves out and the family survivors, the spouse, the children, the mother, the father, know about this attempt to return the gun to the gun store and the gun refused, they said, well, it's a used gun, I'll buy it back from you, but it's going to be, the gun was $700. I'll give you give you 400 for it or something like that, The gun store could try this. They could attempt to do this with the person, and if it works, they're off the hook. The fear is if the person takes their own life out or someone else's life out, if let's say they kill a neighbor, and it comes up that this person demonstrated mental incompetence with a violent tendency for mayhem to the gun dealer to return the gun, and the gun dealer wouldn't take it back, then they got a lawsuit of millions of dollars against the gun dealer. Welcome to the American judicial system. So this means that your illegals are going to be able to run around armed. And the police know about this already in America in some cases, and they're not happy. Okay? They could pack heat, okay? Now, maybe some gun stores in some states aren't going to sell it to them, and maybe some will. We don't know yet what's going to happen. These illegals have access to free lawyers in America, quite a few of them. Other countries and groups fund these lawyers to provide free legal services. So, a migrant goes into, with asylum seeker paperwork, goes into a gun store, attempts to buy a gun, paying cash or credit card or whatever with two witnesses there, and the gun store refuses to sell them the gun. Well, now they construct a case, go to court and sue the gun store for $11 million and file with the federal courts denial of Second Amendment rights, and this guy will probably win. So what could the gun stores and the patriots in America do about this? They can, the NRA or these Second Amendment rights organizations have lawyers, but not many. They could file a lawsuit with the Supreme Court to overturn it. Now, do you think the Supreme Court's going to stop and drop whatever they're doing on their docket and pay attention to a lawsuit brought by the NRA or Second Amendment rights or some similar organization? No. They're going to probably take many months to decide if they even want to hear the case. If they decide they want to hear the case, then they put it on the docket. And they submit the paperwork, and then each side shows up in front of the Supreme Court, and they give them a certain allocation of time, which could be an hour, or it could be a half hour, or it could be a whole day, or whatever, to present their case to the Supreme Court justices. Then, after they present their case and there's an opposition side, if there is an opposition, they can file the action and there's nobody opposing it, but that doesn't mean the Supreme Court's going to rule in their favor. They're not high on summary judgments, And then the Supreme Court looks at it, and it may take a couple of months for them to render a decision after they hear the arguments. What I'm saying is there's prophetically not enough time left. That's the long and the short and the tall. So now in America, a federal court said these illegals can own and possess firearms. Now, what you may not know, that would include assault weapons like AK-47s, which they're trained on. Okay? And AK-47s are readily available. They're not very expensive. Ammo for the AK-47s is readily available. There's usually, I'm sure, for most assault weapons, there are parts available to convert the weapon from semi-automatic, in other words, boom, 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 one trigger pull, one bullet, to full auto, which means one trigger pull, and depending how long you depress the trigger, the gun will keep firing fully automatically at a high rate of fire. So they buy the parts, which is legal. Now, if you have the part in your home or place of business and you have the gun that it will fit into, that's a violation. Because you're keeping the part until the eggs hit the fan, and then you put them in the gun and you got a machine gun, and they know that. So what some of the gun nuts will do is they'll take the part and put it in another location someplace under someone else's roof, not theirs, who doesn't have a gun. Like, they might go to their grandparents and say, "Could I leave this trunk here and put some parts in the trunk?" And then they're not really likely to ever be arrested for it. And if they were, making the case stick would be dicey. It could happen, but it would be not easy. So they could easily convert these guns to full auto. They could get their own machine guns and download from the internet the plans to make these guns full auto. If they have a CNC, machine shop that can use a laser to make the part with precise tolerances, they could make it in a few minutes, and then or it might take a couple hours, and then they could drop the part in and take files and sandpaper and polish it accordingly until it fits good and smooth and works and all that. Because tolerances are going to vary from gun to gun, especially when you're dealing with cheap guns like AK-47s. So now those are the guns that most of these characters are trained on, but they could also use AR-15s and many, many other guns. Now, this new ruling is likely to raise the anger tremendously of the survivalists, the preppers, the Second Amendment people, the pro-Second Amendment. Okay? This is bad. This is going to cause the militia types, the gun collector types, the survivalists, the preppers, they're going to rise up. See, instead of taking the guns away, which is going to be near impossible, they're arming these sleeper agents. This is going to cause more guns to be bought. People are not going to deliver themselves from the daughter of Babylon with guns. The destruction is going to be by fire. I'm going to go through the scriptures shortly. It's going to be by fire. And yes, it's also going to be them going around to houses and killing people. Yes, I agree. But the big destruction is going to come from fire. The gun people, are they going to be able to injure some of these people that rise up? Probably. But it also says they're going to be so scared they're going to be in their holes. What they're not telling you, it's these sleeper agents, which are in the millions now, 70%. There could be as many as 12 to 15 million of these people in America by now, under Biden's years, under the years of Biden. And that 70% figure could, get up to 10 million. And they got money, they got funding, they'll get the money, they'll get the guns. The gun of choice for the terrorist is the AK-47. The AK-47 is a very durable weapon. They're very simplistic. They're easy to break down and reassemble. It is not a normally very accurate gun. You can use it to hit a human out about 200 yards. That's it. Okay? The AR-15 guns, normally you get about 300 yards out. Now that both of these have sniper versions where they have a thick barrel that's cold hammer forged and better tolerances, and so the bullet is more secure in the breech and stuff like that. And you might be able to take a sniper AR-15 and get out 500 or 600 yards with it. But it's not a very good sniper gun because it's a small, light bullet moving fast. The further the distance, the speed drops. Okay? And then the lightweight bullet, which is usually about 55 grains, doesn't have much oomph with it when it slows down. Now, the AK-47 is not using a 55 grain bullet or a 59 grain. They're using a 124 grain bullet or 125 grain bullet at about 2,500 feet per second from a full-size AK. So, in my opinion, it's a more lethal round. But the AR-15 is also lethal, but not at great distances because the speed keeps dropping and then the bullet loses its oomph. Both of these bullets, we'll talk the AK-47 round's going to go through cars. It's going to disable motors in cars. It's going to go through bulletproof vests that are not plate carriers. It'll get stopped by the ceramic protective plate that police put over their heart, usually a little piece like this. Yeah, it'll stop that. It'll a plate carrier where they're putting really special ceramic plates, usually 10 by 12 inches on their chest, or it could be 12 by 14 inches. One plate on the front, one on the back. Some of them are made out of metal. I used to have one made out of hardened steel. And yeah, that'll stop either the AR-15 or the AK-47 round. But if you spray it at somebody, you go brrr, and you hit them 5 or 6 times, the ceramic plate will be likely to break up and not keep stopping the bullets if they keep pouring more on you. The metal plate probably will hold up. So, this is going to scare people monumentally. And remember, before the destruction of the daughter of Babylon, you have ruler versus ruler. To be a ruler, you have to be officially in charge of something, not a street gang. Abbott fits the test rather well. That's the governor of Texas, and he fits it because he is a bona fide ruler, and he is against Biden. And other states, approximately half of the United States, are supporting Abbott in Texas. They've sent National Guard troops from their state and law enforcement officers from their state to help Texas close the border, and Texas is utilizing them, and yes, they are closing the border. And now Texas is going to begin a very heavy campaign of throwing the illegals out of Texas. And this is going to make it worse for the other states. They're no longer going to come in through Texas, and they're going to get thrown out of Texas and not want to go to Texas. So this is going to cause a lot of dissension from the left-wing states. They're not going to be happy about what Texas is doing. There's no evidence of any of this. I put the legitimate mainstream media, so-called legitimate headlines up. Innocent women and children dying in Gaza. You should investigate your facts. I hold the tablet upside down, so what? I'm not broadcasting on this tablet. No evidence of any of this. You don't mention anything, and I gave evidence of a lot of what I told you. So I don't know where you're basing this on, you know. Okay, let me go back into my Telegram and bring some other things out for you. You can check this out. The White House in America, Washington D.C., Biden White House, sent out emergency messages to states telling them that the water supply is in jeopardy of being attacked by terrorists, and then there might not be any water. It's not difficult to attack a water supply. You can use hacking, internet type, and mess the system up so it crashes or shuts down and doesn't pump water. You can destroy water main lines, which are normally not protected well, or not protected at all, I should say. And cut water back. If you open water lines and you get the right water main lines, you cut the pressure down, and then the other people can't get any water coming out. And if the White House said an emergency on that, it probably came from the FBI and or intelligence agencies. That's the legal front. Now, what I'm going to do is explain to you the Bible prophecy verses for what I'm telling you about civil war in America preceding the attack on America. And I'm going to, for the sake of some of you that may be new, I'm going to go through the Bible prophecies on the daughter of Babylon and explain to you, quick review of why America is the daughter of Babylon. And I'm going to do this using scripture. So those of you that just want intel and don't want to work with God or submit to God or serve God or have God help you, you want to do it yourself, instead of buying guns and bullets and prep supplies, why don't you go out and buy yourself a couple of hundred fire extinguishers, and then when the fires come, maybe you'll be able to put some fires out around your house and live an extra 20 minutes or something. Because that's what you're up against. And I'll show you the scriptures that were written thousands of years ago that are going to come true. And I'm going to take a fast break, and I'll be right back. Stay tuned. If you don't care about the Bible, your so-called intel from a guy living in Israel is pretty much completed. Tomato juice. Okay. The main scriptures for the daughter of Babylon is Jeremiah 50:51. Before I start with that, I want to address Trump. I agree that if Trump was the president today, things would be different in America. I don't think Trump is really more than just another one of them that wants to get back in the White House and is not going to do a lot, because he didn't do a lot the last time. But if we're going to ask, okay, was he better than what America was being subject to? Yes, undoubtedly he's better. But prophetically, you ain't going to make it. First thing you need to understand is, get away, Yaffa, is if Trump got in and they swore him in January 20th, 2025, there probably would be more like 18 to 20 million illegals in the United States, 70% of which are military-age males. How would Trump throw him out? Biden already gave him legal status. How's he going to undo that? Let's say he gets a vote through Congress. They won't vote that way. Could he do an executive order? I don't know, maybe. Let's say he did that. People say it would take him more than 4 years to throw them out. I think it would. Because you got millions of them. Where are you going to build your court system on? You got to do due process. Even if he says the heck with due process, let's just play roundup. He'd have to maybe hire 100,000 more border patrol or something like that, and start doing raids and stuff. It would take a long time. Years. And Trump, before he could do any of this, he has to get into office. And Biden is trying his hardest, or somebody is trying very hard, to have Trump put in jail. He's got so many cases going on at the same time. And some of these characters are going to try these cases before the election. Once Trump becomes president-elect in November, if it ever gets that far, which I doubt, things change. But will it ever happen? I doubt it. I don't think you got enough time for it. I really doubt it. All right, I'm going to have to shut my door. People come in the house here and they're disrupting, and I need to shut the door. All right. That'll be a couple of seconds. There we go. Let me get my window open. We'll have peace, and the window is open. All right. So I'm going to show you, why America's Daughter of Babylon and how this fits into today for America. The word that Jehovah spake against Babel. Now, the word Babylon's not correct. It's Babel. It means confusion. That's what the word means. The old Babylon wasn't Babylon either. It was Babel. And against the land of the Chaldeans, those are the people that lived in old Babylon. Now, Babylon was a country of witchcraft people. And that's America. Look at the government, look at Hollywood, look at TV, look at all the media, look at Disneyland, look at Universal Studios, just look anywhere. Declare you among the heathen, and publish and set up a standard, publish and conceal not, say, Babylon is taken. Bel, that's one of the demons from the old Babylon. Now, what's going on here in Bible prophecy is the old false gods, the old demons, are the same ones running America. Merodach is broken in pieces. Her idols are confounded. Her images are broken in pieces. Just look on the $1 bill. Do you see a pyramid there with an eye? What do you think that is? For out of the north there cometh up a nation against her, which shall make her land desolate. Now, it could mean the north of Israel, because I don't think Canada's going to be able to carry out a pretty serious invasion against America. That's the only land to the north. So who's north of Israel? Well, Lebanon, Turkey, a lot of countries. Russia is kind of northeast by a lot. Iran is also kind of northeast. Syria, Iraq, Turkey, Lebanon would be north. Against her which shall make a land desolate, and none shall dwell therein. They shall remove, they shall depart, both man and beast. So, if I let you sit here and say everything will be okay, Trump will be in, I'm doing you a bad... What's up?
I pulled Mommy off the street. You didn't bring her in. She pushed through the gate and I pulled her off the street.
All right, I didn't know that. She, You're not going to make it. Prophetically, you don't have the time. You won't. And even if you made it to the election, it would take Trump a year to even begin to dent any of this. And they're not going to wait. Why would they wait? Because they know if they wait, Trump's going to make obstacles for them. So why would they do that? Hang on a second. I got to check this message. I don't know what it's telling me. This is Israel. You got to check messages, and especially when you got wars. I don't think I have to deal with that. Okay. In those days, that's now, and in that time, saith Jehovah, the children of Israel shall come, they and the children of Judah together, going and weeping, and they shall go and seek Jehovah Elohim. Now, Well, this involves a broader understanding of prophecy, but there's 6.5 million known Jews in America, plus perhaps more in the millions of lost tribes that are going to be coming out before the actual complete destruction. And the Christians, or the true believers, not the people that like to go to the churches and say they're believers, they're going to come too, because when you're in Yeshua, biblically, you're in Israel. Yeshua is from the tribe of Judah, which is where the word Jew comes from. He's a Jew. He calls you his brethren. He's the king of Israel. He's the high priest after the order of Melchizedek, and he's coming to Israel. So now tell me you can be a real believer in Yeshua and at the same time not be in Israel when it says all Israel shall be saved. It doesn't say all Israel in the church shall be saved. Go find me a scripture that says the church will be saved. They shall ask the way to Zion with their faces thitherward, saying, come and let us join ourselves to Jehovah in a perpetual covenant that shall not be forgotten. My people hath been lost sheep. Their shepherds have caused them to go astray. They have turned them away on the mountain. They have gone from mountain to mountain. They have forgotten their resting place. Okay. All that found them have devoured them, and their adversaries said, we offend not, because they have sinned against Jehovah, the habitation of justice, even Jehovah, the hope of their fathers. Remove out of the midst of Babylon, and go forth out of the land of the Chaldeans, and be as the he-goats before the flocks. So there's a cry here in the scripture for all the true believers to leave the daughter of Babylon before it gets destroyed. Now, when do you go? We'll cover it. I will raise up and cause to come against Babel an assembly of great nations, heathens is the word, from the north country, and they shall set themselves in array against her from thence. She shall be taken, their arrows shall be as a mighty expert man. Just get a map and look at Israel and what's north of Israel. That's all you got to do. None shall return in vain. Chaldea shall be a spoil, all that spoil her shall be satisfied, saith the Lord. And they're going to come loot and pillage the place. Does that mean they're going to come loot and pillage your house? Well, it depends how rich you are. They're not going to go to the ghetto houses, I don't think. People in Beverly Hills, let's say, got a real problem. Because you were glad, because you rejoiced, O you destroyers of my heritage. The heritage is Israel. Because you were grown fat as the heifer at grass, and bellow as bulls. Well, the Americans are rich, not everybody. The bad ones are rich. You're the ones with the unclean spirits. Your mother shall be sore confounded. She that bare you, that's the unclean spirit that was running the original Babylon, which was of old days, where Iraq is. Although it was really an empire. Behold, The hindermost of the nations shall be a wilderness, a dry land and a desert. God only has 70 nations. Man has over 200. America is the last of the nations to be formed according as God has it. That's the hindermost. Because of the wrath of Jehovah, it shall be not inhabited. It shall be wholly desolate. Every one that goeth by Babel shall be astonished and hiss at all her plagues. Put yourselves in array against Babel. Round about, all you that bend the bow, shoot at her. Spare no arrows, for she hath sinned against Jehovah. Now, these descriptions of the weapons here could be allegorical. Okay, the arrow thing could be rifles, artillery, whatever. Shout against her round about. She hath given her hand, her foundation are fallen, her walls are thrown down. For it is the vengeance of Jehovah. Take vengeance upon her as she hath done, do unto her. America's done a lot of bad things. They attacked Korea in the 50s to fight communism. They devastated Vietnam in the 60s and 70s to fight communism. How many other countries they started revolts in, overthrew, attacked, sanctioned? I mean, unbelievable. Now, when it says she has given her hand, what that means in plain English is if Biden sticks around, Biden surrenders America. You got it? Okay, get it. Cut off the sower from Babel. Now, wait a minute, we forgot something. The walls, her walls are thrown down. What walls are those? Well, you know what they are. They're the walls between America and Mexico. They have thousands of, 3,000 miles of walls? Why are they thrown down? Because the people that are going to want to push into America to loot, pillage, steal, rape, plunder, murder, going to come through Mexico and they're going to shove the walls down. How do they do that? With trucks, probably bombs, hand grenades, I don't know. Cut off the sower from Babylon. Those are the workers that come for agricultural work. And him that handleth the sickle. The sower does the planting, the sickle guy does the harvesting. In the time of harvest, for fear of the oppressing sword, they shall turn everyone to his people, and they shall flee everyone to his own land. Now, you have to be watching for this. People from America that are not believers in the Bible and Father God Jehovah and his son Yeshua the Messiah are going to run away. They're going to go back to the country they came from. For fear of the oppressing sword. And that's going to be before it gets bad. So watch for this. Israel is a scattered sheep. The lions have driven her away. First the king of Assyria hath devoured him. And last, this Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, has broken his bones. Now you must listen to this. This Nebuchadnezzar is meaning the head of the United States at the time, which is like now, has broken his bones. Not Nebuchadnezzar, this Nebuchadnezzar, which would be Biden unless he's gone and someone else takes over in the very, very near future. Broken the bones of Israel. Now, you need to know what Biden is doing to Israel. He's trying to stop us from persecuting the war against Gaza. Okay? He's telling us there's going to be consequences if we attack Rafah. Netanyahu's telling them if we don't attack Rafah, we can't get a victory over Hamas. He's pushing us to keep putting more aid into Gaza. On my Telegram, I got videos of Hamas stealing the aid, the food, the fuel, everything, keeping it, reselling it to the people of Gaza who are supposed to get it for free at high prices. Shooting at them and shooting them when they try to get the aid. And Biden keeps sending more, but it keeps going to Hamas. Biden supports the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas. Mahmoud Abbas has a program called Slave for Pay. It's a lot like Al Capone's Murder Incorporated. It really is. I'll tell you how it works. A terrorist goes out and kills a baby or a woman in Israel. They don't enforce the death penalty, so he goes to jail, maybe for life. His family gets paid about $3,200 a month. Every month, the terrorist is in jail by Mahmoud Abbas and the Palestinian Authority. If the guy just attempts terrorism but doesn't really kill anybody and he goes to jail for a few years, they pay him the money for a few years. If the terrorist gets killed, killing Israelis or attempting to kill Israelis, that money is paid to his surviving family every month as long as he can continue paying it. Israel collects the taxes for the Palestinian Authority, and we take out an equal amount of tax money that he gives to the Slave for Pay program to the victims and the survivors, the friends of the family of the victims that got killed. We give that money to them. So what happened? Blinken came over here and gave him $50 million so he would be able to continue the Slave for Pay program. Yes, this is true. Check it out on Google. He ran the money through the UNWRA. The EU gives him 200 million euros. Other countries give him massive amounts of money, Qatar and others, for killing Jews. The United States gives him money to kill Jews. The citizen Jews, civilians, children, women, not soldiers. This you can document easily. And Biden never once told them, we're not going to give you any money unless you stop the Slave for Pay. Now tell me, America's not the daughter of Babylon. You can document this. It's easy as pie. They all give money to Mahmoud Abbas, who takes a good piece of that money and gives it to people for killing Jews. Oh, say, can you see? It's a big deception. Have you heard of the DEA make any big drug arrests in the last 6 months or so? I haven't. Do you know there's a massive amount of fentanyl being smuggled in through Biden's open border? People are overdosing on fentanyl all over the United States like crazy. Can you tell me that's not genocide? Let's keep going. Therefore, thus saith Jehovah of armies, Elohim Yisrael. Notice it says Jehovah of hosts, in English this really means armies, God of Israel. Find me a scripture that says God of the church. Jehovah's the God of the church. Just find me one scripture where it spells it out like that. Behold, I will punish the king of Babel and his land as I have punished the king of Assyria. Well, there it is. And I will bring Israel again to his habitation. Again, it's the second Exodus, which is coming very shortly. And he shall feed on Carmel, that's near Haifa, and Bashan, and his soul shall be satisfied upon Mount Ephraim. I believe that's in Jordan. And Gilead, same thing, I believe. In those days, it might be in Syria. I have to check. I don't know all these Arab locations right now. I think it could be what. Well, let me see where it is. Anyway, it's either Jordan or Syria. I think it may be the West Bank, but I doubt it. In those days and in that time, saith Jehovah, the lawlessness of Israel shall be sought for, and shall be none. And the sins of Judah, and they shall not be found. For I will pardon them whom I reserve. The remnant. He's going to pardon them. The church is teaching you to wait for Israel to repent. Okay. They don't know. Go up against the land of Merathaim. That's again one of these demon idols from the old Babylon, even because they're worshiping these demon idols now. Even against it and against the inhabitants of Pekod, waste and utterly destroy after them, saith Jehovah, and do according to all that I have commanded thee. A sound of battle is in the land, and of great destruction. That's America. How is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder? Can you name any other country that you could call the hammer of the whole earth? I couldn't. And broken is asunder and broken. How is Babel become a desolation among the nations? It's the biggest and best and most powerful nation. Not anymore, because it's on the way down the drain. I have later, in the recent months, or maybe even the last 2 or 3 years, when I grew up in the 50s, America didn't look anything like this. Nothing. It's in the 60s America went bad with killing all the innocent people in Vietnam and starting to put people away for many years in jail for using drugs, and started with the 1968 Gun Control Act. That's when they went off kilter. I have later, well, they were always off kilter, but that was seriously extreme. And then they took America off the silver standard in 73 and went into effect. It was in 72, but it went into effect, I think, in maybe it was 70. It was 73 when it went into effect. I have laid a snare on thee for thee. So God, Jehovah, Father God, put a snare on America. And America's walking into the snare. What's the snare? America is threatened by North Korea destroying South Korea and even Japan. China destroying Taiwan and even Japan. China and the Philippines, China and Guam. America's scared. They're putting a lot of military assets over there, mostly naval. Okay? All right? Biden's scared of Russia attacking the NATO countries. He's shoveling weapons into Ukraine like there's no tomorrow. And money. Congress stopped him. Ran the American military reserves down for equipment by giving it to Ukraine. In the countries of Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Oman, UAE, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia, America now has 58,000 troops stationed there. To protect these non-democratic dictators calling themselves kings, who treat their people miserably, have no respect for women's rights whatsoever. And these are America's friends, all enemies of Israel, I might add. There are no troops stationed in Israel. Never have been to protect Israel. Never. Maybe a few advisors, very few, like 10, something like that. They don't care about Israel. They make you think they care. thou wast not aware, thou art found and also caught, because thou hast striven against the Lord. In many ways that I'm going to cover with you, but one way is how they're dealing with Israel. Biden is trying to set us up. Biden doesn't want to let Israel win with Hamas. Biden wants us to have a two-state solution. He won't stop talking about it. Neither did Trump. They want us to give the West Bank to the Muslim terrorists, and they'll attack us from the West Bank exactly like they did from Gaza. And that's what Biden and the nations want from us. And they want to make Jerusalem an international city, open to equally the Muslims, the Catholics, Christians, and although they'll use the Pope, not the same as a Christian, but they don't care, and the Jews. So there'll never be a temple without their permission, which is there'll never be a temple. But it's not going to work. Jehovah hath opened his armory and hath brought forth the weapons of his anger, indignation. For this is the work of Adonai Jehovah of armies in the land of the Chaldeans, come against her from the utmost border. Now, that would be Canada or Alaska. It probably is Alaska dropping through Canada. The Bering Straits, which China and Russia and North Korea could easily access. I think it's 42 miles. And sometimes in the winter it freezes, but that 42 miles is not a big trip. For a military boat that runs 25, 30 miles an hour, it's a little more than an hour trip. Open her storehouses. That would be food, weapons, whatever. Cast her up as heaps and destroy her utterly. There you go. Let nothing of her be left. Slay all her bullocks. Let them go down to the slaughter. Now, I don't believe he's talking about animals. I think he's talking about not the army, but the police forces, which have gotten pretty wicked in the last 20 or 30 years, you know that. Woe unto, giving people $900 fines for tinted windows, come on. Woe unto them, for their day is come, the time of their visitation. Well, Israel had a visitation in 70 AD, you might say, and the whole place got burned down. The voice of them that flee and escape out of the land of Babel, to declare in Zion the vengeance of Jehovah Elohim, the vengeance of his temple. Probably a throwback to the days when the Babylonians came in and burned the temple and took all the temple artifacts back to Babylon, which Cyrus returned to them. But this is the believers in Yeshua, the real ones, not the churchgoers, the real ones, and all the Israelites, believing or not, going to Israel. And they're going to tell the story in Israel as to what happened. Probably the internet's down. Call together the archers against Babel, all you that bend a bow. Camp against it round about. Now this is because, well, I'll get to that another time. Okay, camp against it round about means they come in from all the borders. Shout, let none thereof escape. Recompense her according to her work, according to all that she hath done, do unto her, for she hath been proud against Jehovah, against the Holy One of Israel. Sure, they're not going to let Israel get the land back. They keep taking land from Israel. The Americans caused us to give the Sinai Peninsula back. They caused us to give Gaza back. They caused us to get out of Lebanon in 2006. Now they want us to give the West Bank back. They tried taking it through the Arabs many times, and it never worked for them. So now they got the bright idea that they just scare Israel, have leaders serving the gods of dead of Israel, and force the Israelis to believe they should give the land up for peace. And then they use it against Israel, and slowly but surely they want to get rid of Israel. Therefore shall they don't want prophecy being fulfilled. Therefore shall her young men fall in the streets. All her men of war shall be cut off. That's the entire military. Now, the men of war is not the bullocks. The men of war is the military. And they're all gone. Because they do whatever the daughter of Babylon tells them. We've got to go to Vietnam and stop the spread of communism. And then they burn people's houses. They kill men, women, and children. Rape people. They do this all around the world. And all her men of war shall be cut off in that day. They're all. What I'm telling you is going to happen in my book is, in my opinion, I should say, these sleeper agents are going to take out the military bases. American military base, a big base, maybe has 50 MPs and Department of Defense police patrolling it on a shift. That's about it. They got handfuls at 1 or 2 gates that they keep open. And the rest are doing patrols, answering calls. Hey, this guy's fighting. This one's drunk. Hey, somebody stole this, And, that's it. So you've got, 7 or 10 million sleeper agents in America. So 4,000 or 5,000. You don't even need that many. Swarm with guns they can now buy. Swarm onto the base. And kill the existing guys there. What do they have? They have pistols and rifles. They don't even have squad machine guns. But even if they did, so what? Okay? They don't have artillery. They don't have any real weapons. Just overwhelm them. The rest of the soldiers on the base, are they armed? No, all the arms are locked up. If they're at the rifle range, they're armed, but they don't have any personal guns nor military guns in their barracks. They'll lock them in the barracks and burn them. What they did on October 7th is they have something called a thermobaric grenade, a little hand grenade that, I don't know if it's thermobaric, but it creates intense heat that starts fires in houses. And they'll just throw those through the window, surround the barracks, and burn them. Oh, they'll call on the cell phones just like they did in Israel. So what? Nobody's coming. They'll probably take over tanks, Humvees, armored personnel carriers, artillery, helicopters, jets, whatever. Behold, I am against thee, O thou most proud, saith Adonai Jehovah of armies. The day is coming, the time I will visit thee. And the most proud shall stumble and fall. Those are the ones serving the unclean spirits that think they have it knocked. And none shall raise him up, and I will kindle a fire in his cities. That's the big means of destruction. Kindle a fire in his cities, and it shall devour or burn up all round about him. That's how it's going to go. Remember, China came in with a balloon a few weeks ago. It was seen in Utah, then Colorado. Then it passed over the panhandle of Texas on the way to Florida, and then Texas had that horrific fire in the panhandle, which I don't know, as far as I know, it's still going. It was over 1 million acres burned, and I think it's still going, although they don't want you to know it, so they take it out of the news. Is it possible that balloon, which Biden refused to shoot down, he wanted to watch how it operates, caused the fire? It's possible. Do I know for sure that's what happened? No. Do I suspect it's a likely possible occurrence? Oh, yeah. But God can send fire and brimstone. He doesn't have to use China. Thus saith Adonai, thus saith Jehovah of hosts. The children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together, and all that took them captive held them fast. They refused to let them go. Is it possible that the United States, when Israel rises up in Zechariah 12 with the two witnesses, which could be any day now, doesn't let the Israelites and the true believers go back to Israel? They just put them in the FEMA camps? I've never seen the FEMA camps used at all. For victims of disasters, floods, and so forth, they never use them. Do you think maybe they're used to keep the Jews in? I don't know. Pharaoh did that. Didn't want to let them go. Got destroyed. Their Redeemer is strong. Jehovah of hosts is his name. He shall thoroughly plead their cause. He may give rest to the land, that's Israel, Haaretz, and disquiet the inhabitants of Babylon. Well, are you disquieted now in America? A sword is upon the Chaldeans, saith Jehovah, and upon the inhabitants of Babel, and upon her princes and upon her wise men. A sword is upon the liars. Well, they're all liars in the government and all that, and the mainstream media are lying, all of that. And they shall dote. A sword is upon her mighty men, and they shall be dismayed. A sword is upon the horses and upon their chariots, and upon all the mingled people that are in the midst of her, and they shall become as women. A sword is upon her breasts. No, a sword is upon her treasures, and they shall be robbed. So they'll hit the museums, they'll hit the rich people houses, they'll be pillaging and looting like crazy. A drought is upon her waters, and they shall be dried up. We haven't seen this yet that I'm aware of. For it is the land of graven, or it could happen after the attack. I don't know. It's the land of graven images, and they are mad upon their idols. Therefore, the wild beasts of the desert with the wild beasts of the islands shall dwell there, and the owls shall dwell therein, and it shall be no more inhabited forever. It's never going to come back. Neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. As God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah, which was with fire and brimstone, and the neighboring cities thereof, Jehovah so shall the Lord, Jehovah, it says, Jehovah, so shall no man abide there, neither shall any son of man live there. So the fire and Sodom and Gomorrah are pretty similar. But that fire came down from heaven. It doesn't need come from a China balloon. Behold, the people shall come from the north, and a great nation and many kings shall be raised up from the coasts of the earth. How many countries hate America with the sanctions? China, North Korea, Iran, Russia, Cuba, Venezuela. I mean, 1 million countries can't stand it. They shall hold the bow and the lance. They are cruel and will not show mercy. Their voices all roar like the sea, and they shall ride upon horses, every one put in array like a man to the battle against thee, O daughter of Babel. The king of Babel hath heard the report of them, and his hands waxed feeble. Anguish took hold of him, and pangs as of a woman in travail. Behold, he shall come up like a lion from the swelling of Jordan unto the Now, who's coming up like a lion and swelling of Jordan? What is the swelling of Jordan? Well, it happens to be right near me. The Jordan River feeds into the Sea of Galilee. The Sea of Galilee is very close to its maximum height right now. And as the water, we're getting today rain, yesterday rain, I don't know when we're going to fix our roof. The water runs down off the mountains, Golan Heights, Mount Hermon, Safat, And it winds up in the Sea of Galilee, and the water level keeps going up, and then it pushes into the Jordan. And the Jordan, irrespective of us opening the floodgate of the Galilee, is swelling because the water's overflowing the banks. It's probably doing that now. I have to check. I don't know, but it'd be close. And that's right over here. And who's running away but the United States? So they're going to have troops here in the Galilee, which is near Syria, Jordan, and not that far from Lebanon. A good distance from Lebanon, but not that far. Behold, he shall come up like a lion from the swelling of the Jordan unto the habitation of the strong. That's Israel, soon to be. But I will make them suddenly run away from her. And who is the chosen man? Well, he's speaking probably of Elijah or Apostle John, the two witnesses here. That I may appoint over her. For who is like me, and who will appoint me the time? And who is that shepherd that will stand before me? Therefore hear you the counsel of Jehovah that he hath taken against Babel, and his purpose that he hath purposed against the land of the Chaldeans. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them. The least of the flock. Okay. At the noise of the taking of Babel, the earth is moved, and the cry is heard among the nations. Jeremiah 51. Thus saith Jehovah, behold, I will raise up against Babel, and against them that dwell in the midst of them that rise up against me. Now that means America is going to rise up against Israel. This pier they're putting in, a temporary pier for humanitarian aid, is bogus. All they're going to do is they bring big ships in, they offload the big ships to small boats, and they bring it to the pier, and then it goes on trucks. It accomplishes nothing because Hamas robs the trucks, and the people some of the Gazans rob the trucks, and then they resell what they get for high prices. So you accomplish very little with anything, probably nothing. Biden's putting it there to land American troops in Gaza, in my opinion, and do a forced ceasefire on Israel. And against them that dwell in the midst of them that rise up against me, a destroying wind, and will send unto Babel fanners that will fan her. They're going to loot and pillage, get the good stuff out of there. And shall empty her land, for in the day of trouble they shall be against her round about. They're going to be surrounding her. Now, you've already been invaded with these sleeper agents. They're already in place. You must understand that. Against him that bendeth, let the archer bend his bow, and against him that lifteth himself up in his brigadine, and spare you not the young men, destroy utterly all their host. The army, the host is the army. Thus the slain shall fall in the land of the Chaldeans, and they are thrust through in her streets. For Israel has not been forsaken, nor Judah of his God. The God of, what is this word here? Of Jehovah of hosts. Though their land was filled with sin against the Holy One of Israel. Oh, there's plenty of that in America. Come on, I don't have to spell that out, do I? Flee out of the midst of Babel and deliver every man his soul. Be not cut off in her lawlessness, for this is the time of Jehovah's vengeance. Which doesn't say day of vengeance, just says vengeance. He will render unto her a recompense. And that should happen in the year of recompenses. But maybe not, but I expect it will. which the year of recompense is, now you may not believe me, started on or around August 1st, 2023. So it goes to on or about the end of July this year, 2024, give or take 2 or 3 days. I would guess this is the most I'll be off. I can't remember the exact date he gave it to me. Babylon hath been a golden cup in the Lord's hand, that made all the earth drunken. The heathen have drunken of her wine, therefore the heathen, the nations are mad. Well, they all listen to America pretty much, or they used to, not so much today, and they are all mad. Babel is suddenly fallen. It's going to happen suddenly, very suddenly, and destroyed. Howl for her, take balm for her pain, if so be she may be healed. This is probably the rising up from people like Abbott in Texas and so forth. We would have healed Babel, but she is not healed. Forsake her, and let us go every one into his own country, for her judgment reacheth unto heaven, and is lifted up even to the skies. So your own country, if you're a believer in Yeshua HaMashiach or an Israelite, is Israel. Jehovah hath brought forth our righteousness. Come and let us declare in Zion the work of Jehovah Elohim. They declare it in Zion, probably because there's no comms or internet. Remember a couple of weeks ago, the Houthis cut 4 internet cables, and it appears they cut another one in the last week. Make bright the arrows, gather the shields. Jehovah hath raised up the spirit of the kings of the Medes, for his device is against Babel to destroy it, because it is the vengeance of Jehovah, the vengeance of his temple. Again, the unclean spirits are probably the ones that attacked the temple in the old Babylon. Set up is 70 AD and stuff. No, that's the Romans. I'm sorry. Babylon way back. Solomon's temple they destroyed. Set up the standard upon the walls of Babel. What walls? Well, the walls between Mexico and America. Make the watch strong. Set up the watchmen. Prepare the ambushes, for Jehovah hath both devised and done that which he spake against the inhabitants of Babel. O thou that dwellest upon many waters, abundant in treasure, thine end is come, and the measure of thy covetousness. Jehovah of hosts hath sworn by himself, saying, surely I will fill thee with men as a caterpillar. Well, that already happened. You've got perhaps 7 to 10 million of these caterpillar sleeper agents inside already. And they shall lift up a shout against thee. Oh yeah. He hath made the earth by his power. He hath established the world by his wisdom, and hath stretched out the heaven by his hand, by his understanding. When he uttereth his voice, there is a multitude of waters, the heaven and a multitude of waters in the heavens, and he causeth the vapor to ascend from the ends of the earth. He make lightnings with rain, and bring forth the wind out of the treasures. Even every man is brutish by his knowledge. Every founder is confounded by the graven image. For his molten image is falsehood, and there is no breath in them. They are vanity. The work of errors in the time of their visitation they shall perish. The portion of Jacob, Yaakov, is not like them. That's Israel. He's the founder of the ones, the 12 tribes were named after the father. For he is the former of all things, and Israel is the rod of his inheritance. Jehovah of hosts is his name. Thou art my battle axe and weapons of war. This is speaking to Israel. For with thee will I break in pieces the nations, the heathen nations. With thee will I destroy kingdoms, and with thee will I break in pieces the horse and his rider, and with thee will I break in pieces the chariot and his riders. With thee also I will break in pieces man and woman, and with thee will I break in pieces old and young. And with thee will I break in pieces the young man and the maid. I will also break in pieces with thee the shepherd and his flock. And with thee will I break in pieces the husbandman and his yoke of oxen, and with thee will I break in pieces captains and rulers. And I will render unto Babel and to all the inhabitants of Chaldea all their evil that they have done in Zion. All the evil they have done in Israel. Well, that says it all. You're going to see Biden do much worse to us. Not just cutting off, giving us weapons. He's going to take over. He's going to put soldiers in here. Behold, I am against thee, O destroying mountain, saith Jehovah, which destroyed all the earth. I will stretch out my hand upon thee and roll thee down from the rock and make thee a burnt mountain. He's going to destroy it by fire. And they shall not take of thee a stone for a corner, nor a stone for foundations, but thou shalt be desolate forever, saith the Lord. Set you up a standard in the land, blow the trumpet among the nations, prepare the nations against her, call together against her the kingdoms of Arat, Mini, and Ashkenaz. These are the stand countries that have mutual defense treaties with Russia, Uzbekistan, and those kind of things. Right? Appoint a captain against her, cause the horses to come up as rough caterpillars. Prepare against her the heathen with the kings of the Medes. That's from the Median Empire. You could look that up in Google, Median Empire. The captains thereof and all the rulers thereof, all the land of his dominion. And the land shall tremble in sorrow, for every purpose of Jehovah shall be performed against Babel, to make the land of Babel a desolation without an inhabitant. Now, many people know that things are so wrong in America, they're going to go. I mean, Sylvester Stallone moved from California to Florida. That's not it. That doesn't do much. The mighty men of Babel have forborne to fight. You hear that? They're going to be afraid to fight. What does the word forborne mean? To stop. They're going to stop fighting. They're going to be that scared. They have remained in their holds. That means they're going to lock themselves up in their house, in their bug-out shelter and stuff like that. Their might hath failed. They became as women. They have burned her. They're going to become like women. They're not going to fight. They're going to be so scared they're not going to fight. The Jews were that way in World War II. That's going to happen to them. Watch. They have burned her dwelling places, that means the houses. Her bars are broken. One post shall run to another, and one messenger to meet another, to show the king of Babylon that his city is taken at one end. That's Biden in Washington, D.C. And it looks like comms are down because you're using foot messengers. And that the passages are stopped, and that the reeds they have burned with fire, and the men of war are affrighted. The American soldiers are scared. For thus saith Jehovah of armies, Elohim Yisrael, God of Israel, the daughter of Babylon is like a threshing floor. It is time to thresh her, yea, a little while, and the time of her harvest. The time of her harvest will come. The harvest is separating the wheat from the tares. The wheat gets gathered into his barn, which is Israel, and the tares get burned up. They put the wheat and the tares on a threshing floor. They thresh it, they separate. The wheat gets taken away, put in the barn, which is Israel. The tares, the junk, it's burned up. Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, hath devoured me, he hath crushed me, he hath made me an empty vessel, he hath swallowed me up like a dragon, he hath filled his belly with my delicates, he hath cast me out. That's what Nebuchadnezzar did in the old days to the temple, with Solomon's temple and Israel. The violence done to me and to my flesh be upon Babel, shall the inhabitants of Zion say, and my blood upon the inhabitants of Chaldea shall Jerusalem say. So it looks to me like either this is a throwback to the past, or more likely America causes our blood to spill in Israel. The last straw for America, listen to me, is going to be when they do the evil in Israel. That will be when her iniquity has reached its fullness. And when you see that, which is you're beginning to see now, but not in the fullness, that's when America's going to get it suddenly. It'll start with the sleeper agents, and then it will be an invasion from all borders. Military invasion. Therefore, thus saith Jehovah, behold, I will plead thy cause and take vengeance for thee. So obviously they did something bad to Israel these days. And I will dry up her sea and make her springs dry, and Babel shall become heaps, a dwelling for dragons, an astonishment and a hissing without an inhabitant. He made Egypt look pretty bad when they messed with Israel, and that's what's going to happen to America. And they're going to try to keep, I believe, the Israelites and the true believers inside America so they can't get to Israel. Because by then the two witnesses are going to be running Israel. That's what causes the American troops to run away. They shall roar together like lions, they shall leap as lions. They shall roar together like lions, they shall yell as lions' whelps. In their heat will I make their feasts, and I will, the lust is heat, and I will make their heat, let me check that word. Yeah, heat, I believe it's the lust. It could be from the fires, but I think it's lust. Because of content. I will make their feasts, and I will make them drunken, that they may rejoice and sleep a perpetual sleep, and not wake, saith Jehovah. I will bring them down like lambs to the slaughter, like rams with the goats. How is Sheshach taken, and how is the praise of the whole earth surprised? How is Babel become an astonishment among the nations? They're surprised. They don't know it's coming. The sea has come up upon Babel. She is covered with the multitude of the waves thereof. Now, what kind of wave do you need to get to Kansas? I don't even know. Or Utah. It must be massive. Or else they just small waves, 8-10 foot waves, but they just keep pushing in. They don't have to be 3,000 foot waves. They can just be, small waves like tsunami style. Not tsunami, but something like that. The sea has come up upon Babel. She is covered with the multitude of the waves thereof. Her cities are a desolation, a dry land, and a wilderness. Well, after the flood, the water comes up, of course. and a wilderness, a land where is no man dwelleth. Neither doth any man, any son of man, pass thereby. And I will punish Bel and Babel, that's one of the spirits from demons, and I will bring forth out of his mouth that which he hath swallowed up, and the nations shall not flow together any more unto him. How do the nations flow unto the daughter of Babylon? They go to the UN building in New York, 54th Street or something. I think that's what it is, on the East River over there. Yea, the wall of Babel shall fall. That's the wall between Mexico and America. My people, go ye out of the midst of her, and deliver every man his soul from the fierce anger of Jehovah. Now, it's 9 times it tells you to get out of the daughter of Babylon here, in 50 and 51 in Jeremiah. Unless your heart faint and you fear, for the rumor that shall be heard in the land, a rumor shall come 1 year, and after that in another year shall come a rumor, and violence in the land, ruler against ruler. So you're going to see violence very immediately, I believe, ruler like a governor or a mayor against another government. So it looks like it's going to be Texas and several other states, maybe quite a few, against the Fed. That could change, but that's what it looks like right now. Therefore, behold, the days come that I will do judgment upon the graven images of Babel, and her whole land shall be confounded, and all her slain shall fall in the midst of her. And the heaven and the earth and all that therein shall sing for Babel, for the spoilers shall come unto her from the north, saith Jehovah. And Babel hath caused the slain of Israel to fall, so in Babel shall fall the slain of all the earth. Okay? I think Biden's already caused problems on October 7th with Netanyahu, but that's another Bible study or another subject, really. You that have escaped the sword, go away, stand not still. Remember Jehovah far off, and let Jerusalem come into your mind. You are confounded because you have heard reproach. Shame hath covered our faces, for strangers are come into the sanctuaries of the Lord's house. Now, that's probably from the past, but it could be something that's going to still occur. Don't know. Or both. Wherefore, behold, the days come, saith Jehovah, that I will do judgment upon her graven images, and through all her land the wounded shall groan. Through all the land the wounded will be groaning. Though Babylon should mount up to heaven, and though she should fortify the height of her strength, yet from me shall spoilers come unto her, saith the Lord. That means they're going to loot and pillage the place. A sound of a cry cometh from Babel, and great distress from the land of the Chaldeans, because Jehovah hath spoiled Babel, and destroyed out of her the great voice, when her waves do roar like great waters. A noise of their voice is uttered, because the spoiler is come upon her, even upon Babel, and her mighty men are taken. Every one of their bows is broken. For Jehovah Elohim of recompenses shall surely requite, and I will make drunk the princes and her wise men, and her captains and her rulers and her mighty, and they shall sleep a perpetual sleep, and not wake, saith the King, whose name is Jehovah of armies. So they're getting into a lustful party and they go to sleep and they get killed in their sleep. I guess they get burned up or something. Thus saith Jehovah of armies, the broad walls of Babel shall be utterly broken. The broad can mean the long walls. That's the Mexico walls. Mexico, America, shall be utterly broken. These are the walls that Abbott is building right now in Texas. And her high gates shall be burned with fire. And the people shall labor in vain, and the folk in the fire, and they shall be weary. Labor in vain. They go to work, they build houses, they buy cars, they do things. It's all going to get burned up. The word which Jeremiah the prophet commanded Shariah the son of Nerah. Okay, so we basically covered this. There's other scriptures I'm going to read. Another psalm, just one verse to you in a minute. I got to check these messages. What's this? It's a warning from the bank that there's a lot of bank fraud in Israel. That was what that was. Okay. Now I want to make this severity to you. On October 7th, what happened here is they took a child and they put it in an oven and cooked it alive. They raped the women so much. The women were dead. Their pelvic bones were broken, and they kept raping them after they were deceased. They burned people alive. They took women and children and tied them together in cars and whatnot and burned them together alive. People that wouldn't come out of the safe rooms in their houses and they couldn't get in, they burned their houses down with the thermobaric grenade things. Burned them alive. They took them back hostage. They're probably raping these women every day for 5.5 months. They tortured people. They cut a fetus out of a woman, let it lay there dead on the floor, attached to the woman with the umbilical cord. They were both dead. They cut heads off. One guy cut a head off of an Israeli and took it back. These are what you're dealing with. This is what you're up against there in America. And you ain't gonna win, because it's prophesied so, but you can get out. All right, Psalm 137, I think it's verse 8. Whoops, wrong book. Psalm 137, I think it's 8. We'll read 7. Remember, O Jehovah, the children of Edom in the day of Jerusalem, who said, raise it, I might burn it down, even to the foundation thereof. O daughter of Babylon, who art to be destroyed, happy shall he be that rewardeth thee, as thou hast served us. Happy shall he be that taketh and dasheth thy little ones against the stones. Those are the people that attacked us from Gaza on October 7th. Those are probably your sleeper agents in whole or in part, I think. Okay. Let me go take a look at the chat real quick. And I'd be happy to answer questions. As long as they're related. I mean, if you're going to ask me when did Johnny Carson die, I'm not going to answer. Oh, thank you for the Boca Tov, but it's with a V. It's Boca Tov. Okay. Um, so we covered. Let me go back on my notes here. One of the big problems I want to talk about is, it's not a problem. It says, okay, Zechariah 12, the word siege. I'll read you one or two verses. I want to show you how I think. I'm giving you what I think, how it's going to proceed. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about when they shall be in the siege both against Judah and against Jerusalem. The word for siege is not an English word. It's a Hebrew word. It was written in Hebrew. They translated it into English. The Strong's number is 4692. It has the meaning of an enclosure, an entrenchment. Strong's puts it how? Well, a siege. They surround the city. Now, remember what the Chinese have been doing to Taiwan numerous times. They take 6 or 8 warships and they surround Taiwan with it. And then they fly over their airspace and stuff like that. Okay. You can call that a siege and you can call it a blockade. They're putting sanctions on the settlers that live in the West Bank now, Canada, America, UK, other countries. What I think, capital think, they're going to do is they're going to eventually progress the sanctions on Israel. And it might be the case that it's not just our terrorist neighbors in the surrounding of Judah and Jerusalem called the siege. There's no invasion. A siege precedes an invasion. It's not an invasion. And they might put the siege on us in the form of like a sanction. Nobody leaves, nobody comes in, nothing goes out, nothing comes in. To break us down, to give in. And what happens in Zechariah 12, which is the next battle? I'm not going to go through it all because I've done it so many times. In verse 6, you see what happens. In that day will I make the chiefs of Judah, those are the judges, which are prophets, which will be the 2 witnesses, are the only prophets coming. The judges of Judah like an earth of fire among the wood, and like a torch of fire in a sheaf, and they shall burn up all the people round about, on the right hand and on the left, and Jerusalem shall remain still in her own place, even in Jerusalem. That's the correct translation. Who do you know has fire or perhaps lightning coming out of their mouth but the 2 witnesses, and they burn them all up that are surrounding Jerusalem? That's how it ends. And that's going to happen, I would say, the latest around 4.5 months or something like that from now. let's see, March, April, May, June, so yeah, max 4.5 months, I guess. You'll see that, unless I'm wrong and it spills into the year of redemption, which it could, because this is a redemption event, but it could also be on the borderline, sort of between end of recompenses and beginning. But, it's going to happen in the next few days, week, or a few months. It's not going to be years away. Okay? Now, I got a couple other notes I wanted to cover. So, start looking for sanctions, more sanctions against Israel. Biden tried to cause a revolt against Netanyahu the other day, and watch what happens to him. Watch if they do a revolt against him. If we saw Obama somehow come back to the White House, I would say that I had a dream one day years ago where I thought that would happen, but it wasn't. Who it was not it. There were people like militia types at the gates of the White House, like they were storming it. And the Secret Service guy opened the gate wide and said, "We stand down, we're not fighting you." And then in the dream he said, "He's not here, we don't know where he went, he took the helicopter. We stand down, go in, do what you want, we're not fighting you, we're not resisting." I don't know who it was. That was not the invasion, that was the ruler fighting ruler, the Civil War. So I don't know who it was. The judge that came up with this gun decision was an appointee from Obama. Galatians 1:8. I'm almost done. But though we or an angel from heaven preach any other gospel unto you than that which we have preached unto you, let him be accursed. As we said before, so say I now again, if any man preacheth other gospel unto you than that ye have received, let him be accursed. That's one of the big problems with America, is their churches. I can't go through everything as to why their churches are apostate. Read Galatians 5, verse 19 to 21. Pay attention to variance and seditions. Look the meanings up. Sedition is division. Variance is like different doctrinal statements, That's all division. A house divided unto itself shall not stand. That's the church world. And they're all other gospel stuff. John 6:39, all that the believers, all that Father God Jehovah gave to Yeshua, that's all the believers. He says he'll raise them all up on the same day, the last day, which means there's no more days. There's no left behind rapture. He said it 4 times, John 6:39, 40, 44, and 54. Read it 4 times. Pause it and back up and you'll get it. 2 Corinthians 6:17. For the sake of my regulars, I'm not reading all of this because they hear it so many times. But you could certainly go back into my YouTube channel and start listening to my videos. Oh, by the way, guys, please give this a thumbs up and please subscribe if you want to get notified when the eggs hit the fan here in Israel. You'll get notified by me probably 12 hours before the mainstream media. Wherefore come out from among them, and be you separate, saith Jehovah, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you, and will be a father unto you, and you shall be my sons and daughters, saith Adonai Jehovah. So if you're going to be sons and daughters of Jehovah, you're brothers and sisters of Yeshua, who's a Jew. And if you're in Yeshua and you have his spirit, you're going to go tell me you're not part of Israel, you're part of the church? You're in Gaga land. Well, kids, that about knocked me out. So, please remember me for offerings. I put the PayPal in the chat. It's pinned up at the top. It's in the description box. And thank you for those sending offerings in. The log jam broke. Thank you. And it was something I was doing wrong, which I fixed yesterday. It was a financial thing. It had nothing. It wasn't Bible teaching. I took care of it. And pray for me and my wife. Pray for our peace, safety, protection, joy. Pray for our healing and our finances, and pray for our animals and pets, which are all rescues, that they be happy, healthy, and whole. And pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And important, pray for better videos. Okay, and I hope you got something out of this. I have other videos in my YouTube channel. They're under the live section, not shorts, not home, live. You'll see the horizontal bar there, it's live. Scroll around and you'll find Daughter of Babylon, where I go through it tremendously, like it's a melting pot, which, mixed people, mingled people, it says, America's the melting pot. Sits on many waters. America sits on Atlantic, Pacific, Gulf of Mexico, Great Lakes. Has about 8,000 rivers and probably about that many lakes. And the alternatives are the Vatican, which has, the only water they got there are fountains, toilets, water fountains, and they probably have at least 1,000 bottles of their holy water. They don't have any waters. And they say it's Mecca or Medina in Saudi Arabia, which is in the desert. They're not on many waters. And the Vatican has no more than 200 to 300 people living there, and there's no Jews in there. So what the heck are you talking about? It's America. Please understand that. And if you're a true believer, get out when the time comes. It's a little early. When you see the ruler fighting ruler, there's a scripture that says, those of you that survived the sword, let Zion come to mind. Nobody's going to survive that invasion. That's your last chance to get out. If you're in Jehovah, you'll get out. If you're in the churches and the denominations, I ain't going to be seeing you in Israel, in my opinion. I understand the Bible, I won't. The church ain't it. Okay? They break scriptures all over. Look, the 10 Commandments, thou shalt hallow my Sabbath day. They moved the Sabbath day to Sunday. They don't pay attention to it even on Sunday. So don't even tell me they follow the 10 Commandments. They don't. They don't follow nothing. Doctrines of demons is what they follow. They're divisions. They're not going to make it. And they're the seed of this false preaching, calling themselves disciples of whoever, whatever name they use. That's a big evil they did. Big evil. And I think this old guy had spilled out enough for one day. So thank you again. And make sure you subscribe, because when the eggs hit the fan, I start doing live streams all day long. And then you probably want to get noticed of that if you care about these things. If you don't, you don't. So 2.5 hours. So it's still a big video. Okay, I'm out. Thank you.